One of the most famous modern theories comes from the legendary explorer and author, Charles Berlitz. Berlitz was a believer in the idea that Atlantis was a real place and that it was located somewhere beneath the waves. In the 1970s, Berlitz proposed that Atlantis was located in the Bermuda Triangle, an area known for its mysterious disappearances of ships and planes. According to Berlitz, the triangle was the last known resting place of Atlantis, and its strange occurrences were a result of ancient technology or supernatural forces. Now, that theory may sound a bit far-fetched, but it certainly got people thinking. Then there are those who believe that Atlantis is not just an ancient civilization, but a metaphor for something greater. Some argue that Atlantis represents lost knowledge, that the people of Atlantis possessed wisdom and technology that was far beyond what we can even imagine today. According to this theory, the sinking of Atlantis symbolizes the loss of that knowledge, a tragedy that we still feel the effects of in our modern world. Some even believe that the search for Atlantis is really a search for that lost wisdom, technology, spirituality, or philosophies that could help humanity evolve. Of course, as we all know, there have been no concrete discoveries. No sunken city with perfectly intact buildings and gold treasures has been found. But that doesn't mean the search is over. In fact, it's still going strong. There are still expeditions and underwater research teams looking for Atlantis in the Mediterranean, the Atlantic Ocean, and beyond. Could it be that the city of Atlantis is still out there, waiting to be discovered? Or have we been looking for the wrong thing all along? Maybe the answer is something deeper, a message from the past that's meant to teach us. Not just about a lost civilization, but about ourselves. The thing is, the legend of Atlantis isn't just about a city that sank to the bottom of the ocean. It's about something deeper, something symbolic. People have been fascinated by this story for thousands of years because it taps into the idea that a great civilization, full of wisdom and technology, could have existed long before ours, only to be lost. There's something oddly comforting and humbling about the idea that no matter how advanced we think we are, nature has a way of reminding us how fragile even the greatest societies can be. And here's where things get even more interesting. The more we learn about ancient civilizations, the more we start to see that Atlantis might not be as fictional as some believe. Take the Minoan civilization, for example. Located on the island of Crete, the Minoans were incredibly advanced for their time. They had their own writing system, stunning art, and even indoor plumbing. But around 1600 BC, something catastrophic happened. The Thera eruption. The eruption of Thera, modern-day Santorini, was one of the most powerful volcanic events in recorded history. It sent massive waves crashing into the Minoan islands, and the volcanic ash blanketed the region. The Minoan civilization, which had thrived for centuries, was suddenly struck down in a matter of days. Now, there's no solid evidence to say that this is what Plato was referring to when he described Atlantis sinking beneath the waves. But the idea that a prosperous civilization was wiped out by a natural disaster, leaving behind nothing but stories and ruins, is pretty similar to what Plato described. So, is it possible that Plato's Atlantis was inspired by the Minoans? Perhaps. The idea that a massive, flourishing civilization could vanish so quickly is a tragic reality that still echoes in human history. If you think about it, Atlantis could be more than a story. About an ancient city, it might be Plato's way of warning future generations about the fragility of even the greatest empires. But let's not get too bogged down in the details of one theory. There are other locations, too, where people believe Atlantis might be hiding. One of the most popular places for Atlantis hunters is the Canary Islands. Just off the coast of northwest Africa, the islands have strange rock formations and ancient ruins that seem to suggest something much older than the recorded history of the area. In the 15th century, when Europeans first discovered these islands, some believed that the islands were the remnants of Atlantis. They thought that the island's volcanic formations were the remains of Atlantis, and perhaps some ancient knowledge or technology had survived, hidden beneath the earth. Then there's the theory that Atlantis isn't even in the Mediterranean or the Atlantic, but somewhere completely different, the Caribbean. Could Atlantis be near the Bahamas or in the Bermuda Triangle? This theory, popularized by authors like Charles Berlitz, claims that the Bermuda Triangle is the site of Atlantis's downfall. The Bermuda Triangle, known for its mysterious disappearances of ships and planes, has long been a place of intrigue for conspiracy theorists. Some people speculate that the strange occurrences in this area could be connected to the lost city of Atlantis. whether it's a remnant of advanced technology or supernatural forces. The theory goes the Bermuda Triangle is where Atlantis met its tragic end. Now, let's face it, most of these theories sound pretty out there, right? We all want to believe in something bigger, something exciting, and the idea of a sunken city filled with untold riches and knowledge is just too tantalizing to pass up. But whether you believe in the theories or not, Atlantis has had a lasting impact on how we view ancient history. It's influenced countless books, movies, and TV shows, and it continues to be a symbol of human ambition, knowledge, and downfall. But perhaps the most compelling thing about the Atlantis myth is how it taps into something deep within us. The fear of losing everything. The idea that a civilization so great, so advanced, could vanish overnight is a reminder that no matter how powerful or advanced we become, nothing is guaranteed. And that's a lesson that doesn't just apply to ancient times. It applies to all of us today. We're always at risk of being swept away by forces beyond our control, whether it's nature, war, or even our own mistakes. And that's why we still search for Atlantis. It's not just about finding a city buried under the sea. It's about finding answers to bigger questions, about how we can avoid the same fate as the Atlanteans, about what we can learn from their story, and about whether we can build something lasting, something that won't sink beneath the waves. But here's the kicker. Maybe Atlantis isn't meant to be found. Maybe the search for it, the story itself, is the real treasure. After all, the idea of a lost civilization full of wisdom and knowledge is a powerful one. And even if we never find Atlantis, it might just keep teaching us lessons. As we look toward the future, maybe the question we should be asking isn't, where is Atlantis? But what happened to Atlantis, and what can we learn from it? Atlantis might not be a real city, but the themes it represents, pride, downfall, and the consequences of unchecked ambition, are very real. And if we can keep those lessons in mind, maybe we'll avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. As we sit back and think about it, the mystery of Atlantis is one that's just too tempting to ignore. It's a story that's been passed down for thousands of years, inspiring explorers, philosophers, and dreamers alike. The idea of a powerful city, advanced beyond its time, disappearing into the ocean is an image that sticks with you. But what if the story isn't just about a lost city? What if it's really about something much more universal? For centuries, Atlantis has captured our imagination. It's not just a fable from ancient Greece. It's a symbol of everything we've ever feared about the rise and fall of civilizations. Just think about it. Atlantis represents the golden age of human achievement, a utopia lost to time. It's the perfect metaphor for the fleeting nature of greatness, for the idea that no matter how high you climb, things can always come crashing down. And in that way, Atlantis is more than just a place. It's a warning, a reminder to not get too comfortable, to not let our pride blind us to the fact that everything can disappear in an instant. And let's not forget the fact that, while Atlantis might be a myth, there are real-world examples of ancient cities that did meet their end in spectacular ways. Take the Minoan civilization, for example. They were thriving on the island of Crete, developing a complex society with impressive architecture, art, and trade. Then, in the 16th century BC, the Thera eruption happened. This volcanic disaster was so massive that it caused widespread devastation across the Mediterranean. The Minoans were never the same after that eruption. The destruction of their society is sometimes linked to the fall of Atlantis, simply because it fits the pattern of a prosperous civilization being wiped out in a single catastrophic event. But the thing is, the destruction of Atlantis isn't the only part of the story that keeps people coming back. It's the idea of a hidden truth, of lost wisdom waiting to be uncovered, and in that, the search for Atlantis becomes something bigger than just archaeology. It becomes a search for knowledge, a search for what humanity might have lost or forgotten over the centuries. Maybe, just maybe, the legends of Atlantis point to something deeper, the idea that there was once a time when humanity was more connected to the earth, to nature, and to each other. A long time ago, in a world very different from ours, there was a city. A great city. A city so advanced, so rich, that it seemed like it could never fall. And of course it did. Just like all the greatest empires, it crumbled and vanished, leaving only whispers and mysteries. This city was called Atlantis. Now I know what you're thinking. Atlantis? Is this some fairy tale? Well, kind of, but it's also so much more than that. It all starts with a man named Plato. You might have heard of him. He's the guy who pretty much invented philosophy and thought about everything under the sun. Plato lived around 400 BC, and in two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, he told the story of Atlantis. According to Plato, Atlantis was a massive island, way out beyond the Pillars of Hercules, today's Strait of Gibraltar. It was a city of wonders, with beautiful architecture, advanced technology, and a civilization that was ahead of its time. It was so powerful that it managed to conquer parts of Europe and Africa, until one day the whole thing was swallowed up by the sea in just one terrible night. Plato's story was captivating, no doubt. But here's the thing. Some people think he was just making it all up. Weaving a grand story to prove a point. Others, however, are convinced that Atlantis was real, and it's out there somewhere waiting to be discovered. Now, some of you might be saying, I've seen this in movies or read about it in books. Atlantis is just a myth, right? Well, that's what people thought, until over the centuries many began to search for it. So let's dive in and figure out where Atlantis might actually be. Spoiler alert, no one really knows, but that hasn't stopped anyone from guessing. I mean, if there's a lost city to be found, you better believe there's going to be a map, a few theories, and maybe even some treasure hunters involved. Let's start by thinking about where this mythical city might have been. Plato described it as a large island, so where could it be? Some people say it's in the Mediterranean, near Greece, while others think it's much farther out, possibly near the Caribbean. Let's talk about the Mediterranean first. One popular theory is that Atlantis was actually the island of Santorini, a volcanic island in the Aegean Sea. Now, Santorini definitely had its own catastrophic volcanic eruption around 1600 BC, which wiped out the Minoan civilization. It could have been so devastating that the memory of it became the stuff of legend, like an island that just disappeared beneath the waves. But as cool as that theory is, there's no evidence to prove that it was Atlantis. Still, the idea of a vanished city beneath the sea just feels like the perfect story for a bedtime tale, doesn't it? But hold on, not everyone is convinced that Atlantis was in the Mediterranean. Some people have proposed that it might have been in the Caribbean, or even somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. They point to mysterious underwater ruins off the coast of Cuba, for example. And while most of these discoveries have been debunked by scientists, it's always fun to imagine what could be out there, deep beneath the ocean's surface. And here's the funny thing. No one can seem to agree on where exactly Atlantis was. You'd think, with all the smart people who've looked into this, someone would have found something by now, right? But nope, there's no smoking gun. So we're left with the tantalizing idea that maybe Atlantis is still out there, waiting to be found. So while the exact location is still up for debate, we can agree on one thing. Atlantis wasn't just any ordinary city. It was a beacon of what ancient civilization could have been. Imagine the advanced architecture, the stunning technology. The people of Atlantis were supposed to be far beyond anything the rest of the ancient world had at the time. Plato even described them as having an amazing, circular city built on a series of concentric rings. Can you picture it? A city where everything was perfect, where everything was just a little too advanced for its time. But like all good things, it didn't last. Plato tells us that the Atlanteans got greedy. They became obsessed with power and wealth, and they turned their backs on the gods. They weren't content with ruling the Mediterranean. They wanted to rule the world, and that's when things started to go downhill. According to Plato, the gods weren't too happy about that, and they decided to punish the people of Atlantis. In one mighty day and night of misfortune, the island was swallowed by the sea, disappearing forever. It's a dramatic story, right? And it's easy to see why it stuck. Atlantis became a symbol for more than just a lost city. It became a metaphor for human pride and the consequences of going too far. Atlantis was a paradise that became a warning. Don't get too greedy, or you might end up like the Atlanteans. But what if Atlantis wasn't just a myth? What if, deep down, there's a kernel of truth to it? What if Plato's story was based on something real, something he had heard about or experienced himself? Over the years, archaeologists, historians, and treasure hunters have searched high and low for any clue that could lead them to the fabled city. Some believe it's just a myth. Others are convinced that somewhere in the depths of the ocean, Atlantis lies waiting to be discovered, and that's where we stand today. The search for Atlantis is still alive and well, even after thousands of years. People are still asking the same questions Plato asked. What happened to Atlantis? Where was it? And will we ever find it? Now let's dig a little deeper into the myth and the mystery. You see, the thing that makes the Atlantis story so captivating is the idea that there could be a real city out there. a place where civilization thrived long before ours. There's something about that idea that just grabs your imagination. A city with towering buildings, vast wealth, advanced technology, and a culture that was seemingly light years ahead of the rest of the world. It's almost like something out of a science fiction story. But the truth is, it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility. One of the most interesting things about Atlantis is the way that Plato described its society. He wrote that the Atlanteans were noble, gifted with great wisdom and power. They were a peaceful, prosperous people who ruled over the seas. But of course, they eventually became corrupt. The more wealth and power they gained, the more they wanted. The gods, seeing this, became angry. According to Plato, Atlantis was punished by being wiped off the face of the earth in a single catastrophic event. Now, the fact that Plato describes Atlantis in such detail makes people wonder, could there have been a real place that he was inspired by? Was there an actual civilization that rose and fell in a similar way? Well, let's take a look at some of the possible historical inspirations for the myth. One of the most popular theories involves the ancient Minoan civilization, which flourished on the island of Crete in the Mediterranean around 1600 BC. The Minoans were an incredibly advanced civilization for their time. They had stunning architecture, a complex society, and a thriving economy. They even had their own writing system. But then, around 1450 BC, the Minoan civilization was severely impacted by the eruption of the Thera volcano on the island of Santorini. The eruption was one of the largest in recorded history, and it caused massive tsunamis and widespread destruction. It's not hard to imagine that this disaster, combined with the cultural and technological advances of the Minoans, could have inspired the story of Atlantis. Some people argue that Plato's account was based on the Minoan catastrophe. After all, Plato's description of Atlantis being swallowed by the sea mirrors the effects of the Thera eruption. The island of Santorini, once a thriving civilization, was left in ruins, and much of it was submerged underwater. Could Plato have taken this real-life event and turned it into a myth about an entire civilization lost to the sea? Another theory takes us back even further in time, to the ancient city of Troy. The story of Troy, made famous by Homer's Iliad, tells of a grand city that was destroyed by the Greeks in a war. While the story is largely mythological, the discovery of the ruins of Troy by archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann in the 19th century made many believe that the city was real. Could the fall of Troy have been the inspiration for the story of Atlantis? A city that was once powerful, wealthy, and thriving, only to fall into ruin? There's also the possibility that Plato's Atlantis was a product of his own imagination, a story told to illustrate the dangers of hubris and greed. After all, Plato was a philosopher, and his writings were often meant to challenge ideas and provoke thought. He may have created Atlantis as a cautionary tale, a society that had everything, but lost it all because of its arrogance. In that sense, Atlantis might not have been based on a real place at all, but rather a philosophical construct meant to teach us about human nature. Now, let's talk about the searches. People have been looking for Atlantis for centuries. In the early days, explorers and scholars combed the Mediterranean, trying to pinpoint the location of the lost city. Some thought it was in the Caribbean, others in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. There have even been theories that Atlantis was located in Antarctica, a place that once had a more temperate climate, which could have supported life. The modern search for Atlantis continues today, in both the real world and in the world of imagination. You've got underwater expeditions looking for sunken cities in the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, and even the Arctic. Some of the most famous theories about Atlantis today include the belief that it could be somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle, the Azores, or Antarctica. And while none of these expeditions have uncovered anything definitive, that doesn't stop the dreamers from continuing the search. And why should it? Searching for Atlantis isn't just about finding a city. It's about finding answers to the most important questions humanity has asked for centuries. What happened to us? How did we go from being part of a mysterious ancient civilization to the scattered, divided world we live in today? And that's where things get really interesting. The myth of Atlantis is tied to so many other ancient stories from around the world. Whether it's the Mayan legends of lost cities or the Egyptian tales of the sunken city of Heraklion, all these myths point to the same theme. There's always something out there that we've lost. The knowledge, the culture, the connection to something greater. Whether it's the gods, nature, or some other force, these ancient civilizations seem to have understood something we're still trying to grasp today. The search for Atlantis, then, is as much about the journey as it is about the destination. Sure, we're all curious to know if a city once existed somewhere beneath the waves, but the deeper question is what that city represents. What does it say about us? About our civilization? The fact that the Atlantis myth has lasted for so long means that there's something in it that resonates with us. We're fascinated by the idea of a lost, advanced civilization because, in a way, we fear losing our own. We see the rise and fall of societies throughout history, and Atlantis becomes a cautionary tale. The idea that everything we've built could be swept away in an instant, that's something we can't ignore. As we look to the future, the search for Atlantis might just continue, not because we're trying to find a lost city, but because we're trying to understand what it means to be human. It's a quest for knowledge, for truth, and for the wisdom of the past. Who knows? Maybe someday, someone will uncover the remains of Atlantis. Or perhaps they'll uncover something even more important, a deeper understanding of ourselves. In the meantime, the legend of Atlantis continues to live on, inspiring new generations of explorers and dreamers. Whether or not the city ever resurfaces, its story will remain with us, reminding us of the impermanence of civilization and the importance of learning from the mistakes of the past. Atlantis may be lost, but the lessons it offers are as relevant as ever. And perhaps in the end, that's the greatest treasure of all. As we think about it more, the legend of Atlantis is, in many ways, a mirror reflecting human ambition and the fear of loss. Atlantis wasn't just a place. It was an idea, a symbol of everything we want to achieve and everything that could slip away if we aren't careful. It's like a warning, almost a love letter from the past, reminding us of the delicate balance between greatness and destruction. Let's step back for a moment. Even if Atlantis wasn't a real city, if it was just a myth, it still teaches us something important. The fall of Atlantis is about the dangers of hubris. The Atlanteans, according to Plato, were once virtuous. They were gifted, wise, and strong. But over time, they became corrupt. They forgot the very things that made them great. They became obsessed with power, greed, and domination. And that's when they lost everything. In their pursuit of more, they lost sight of what mattered, and the gods decided to punish them by sinking the entire island beneath the sea. It's a tragic story, isn't it? But here's the thing, this story isn't just about ancient people. It's about us. The myth of Atlantis speaks to our own fears about what could happen to us if we let our greed and ambition go unchecked. We see it in every society, every civilization that has risen and fallen. We see it in the rise of empires, the building of cities, and the inevitable decline when those in power forget the lessons of the past. So, as we continue to search for Atlantis, maybe it's not about finding a city at all. Maybe the search is about finding answers to questions that we've been asking for thousands of years. What happens when a society reaches its peak? What happens when it becomes too proud, too powerful? Will we avoid the same fate as Atlantis? Or are we doomed to repeat the mistakes of history? And while we may never find the actual city of Atlantis, we can still learn from its story. The myth teaches us that no civilization, no matter how great, is invincible. It reminds us that power, wealth, and success are fleeting. And if we don't act with wisdom and humility, we could lose it all in the blink of an eye. But here's a thought. Maybe Atlantis wasn't meant to be found. Maybe the city's true purpose wasn't about being a literal place at all. What if Atlantis was always meant to be a symbol? A story we pass down through the generations to remind us of what's possible and what's dangerous. A warning, yes, but also a challenge to do better, to avoid the pitfalls of the past and build a future where we don't forget what truly matters. As we look around today with all our technology and advancements, we can't forget the lessons of Atlantis. We live in a world where we're constantly pushing boundaries, where the thirst for power and success is sometimes overwhelming. But we have to remember that the collapse of Atlantis wasn't just about nature. It was about the people who lived there. It was about their choices. And the same is true for us. Atlantis may be lost to the depths of the ocean, but the story still resonates. The legend endures because it speaks to something timeless in the human experience. It reminds us that we are not invincible. We must tread carefully, respect the natural world, and remember the lessons of those who came before us. In the end, maybe the greatest discovery isn't finding the ruins of an ancient city beneath the waves. Maybe it's learning from the mistakes of a forgotten civilization and using that wisdom to create something better, something that will last long after we're gone. So, while the search for Atlantis continues, remember that the most important part of the journey might not be the destination. It might be the lessons we learn along the way, and the choices we make today that will shape the world of tomorrow. As the years pass, the search for Atlantis continues to captivate us. People keep diving into the depths of the oceans, looking for sunken cities and lost civilizations, while others study the myths, trying to unlock the secrets hidden in Plato's writings. But here's the thing. Atlantis, whether it existed or not, has become more than just a place. It's become a part of our culture, our imagination, and our collective story. The allure of a lost city, filled with wisdom and grandeur, speaks to something deep inside us. It's not just about finding Atlantis. It's about understanding what it represents. Atlantis is the dream of human greatness, the peak of achievement. But it's also a reminder of the fragility of that greatness. It's a symbol of what could be lost if we forget to value the things that truly matter: wisdom, humility, and respect for the world around us. But here's the question. Will we ever truly find Atlantis? Will there be a day when a diver stumbles upon the ruins of an ancient city buried beneath the sea? Perhaps. But if we're being honest, it seems just as likely that we will never find that definitive answer. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the mystery itself is what keeps the story alive. The idea of Atlantis, a city that could have been, and a place that might still be out there, waiting to be discovered, is part of the magic. And even if we never find Atlantis, we don't really need to. We have the stories, the myths, and the lessons that have been passed down through the ages. Atlantis continues to live on in the human imagination, teaching us the importance of balance. It's a reminder that no matter how far we come, how much we achieve, there are always forces beyond our control. Nature, the environment, and even our own pride can cause us to lose everything. So, as we continue to search for the city, whether physically or metaphorically, it's not just about uncovering lost ruins. It's about understanding the deeper lessons that Atlantis offers. It's about the reminder that no civilization is permanent, and that it's the values we build upon that truly matter. Humility, wisdom, and respect for the world around us will determine whether we endure, or whether we, too, end up lost to time like the Atlanteans. In the end, maybe the greatest mystery is not where Atlantis is, but why we continue to look for it. Perhaps it's because Atlantis represents something we all strive for: greatness. And perhaps in our search for the lost city, we're really searching for something deeper, something within ourselves, a connection to the past, a desire to understand who we are, and a hope that, even in our flaws, we can build something that will last. Atlantis may remain buried, but its story will always be with us. It's a part of who we are, and maybe that's the greatest treasure of all. The thing about Atlantis is, it's always going to be a part of our cultural fabric. Whether or not it ever existed as Plato described, the idea of a lost civilization full of wisdom and advanced technology still resonates with us. It taps into our desire to reach for something greater, something beyond our current limitations. And even if we never find the physical city, we're still searching for what Atlantis represents: the potential for greatness, the possibility of something better, and the fear that it could all slip away just as quickly as it appeared. But that search, whether it's for an actual sunken city or for something more symbolic, isn't going to stop anytime soon. People will keep diving into the deep waters, using advanced technology to scan the oceans for traces of Atlantis. Some will look for evidence in the Mediterranean, others in the Caribbean, and some even believe it could be somewhere hidden in Antarctica. These searches, while often speculative, serve as a reminder that we are constantly looking for meaning, for purpose, and for understanding in the unknown. What's fascinating, though, is how the search for Atlantis isn't just about uncovering the city itself. It's about what it represents. It's about the dream of a civilization that had everything: wisdom, technology, prosperity, and yet lost it all because of their own hubris. And maybe that's the part we're really searching for: the answers to why we too could lose everything if we don't learn from the past. Maybe the myth of Atlantis is a warning that we need to heed, even today. But let's be real for a second. Even if we never find Atlantis, it doesn't really matter. Because the lessons of Atlantis are still with us. We still talk about it, still speculate about its whereabouts, still wonder about the wisdom it held. And maybe, just maybe, that's the true legacy of Atlantis: its ability to inspire, to provoke thought, and to challenge us to be better. So, as we look out at the horizon, still searching for that lost city, perhaps the real treasure isn't a city buried beneath the sea, but the lessons we've carried with us from the story itself. Maybe the wisdom of Atlantis isn't found in ruins, but in the way we live today. Maybe it's found in how we treat the world around us, how we learn from the mistakes of the past, and how we choose to build a future that lasts. In the end, Atlantis might just be a myth. But the lessons it offers are very real. And those lessons will continue to guide us as we search for meaning in the mysteries of the world. Whether we ever find the city or not, we've already found something far more valuable: the ability to imagine, to dream, and to learn from the past, and that, in itself, is a treasure.